First of all, I would like to welcome up David Covington, who's the CEO and President of Recovery Innovations International, who's a behavioural innovator, an entrepreneur and a storyteller, and Brian Amadani, who's Director of the Centre for Health and Policy Research, Behavioural Sciences at Henry Ford Health in the USA. And they have lots to tell you about the summit and about Zero Suicide International. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudia, and welcome to Zero Suicide 5. It's been a minute. Joe, Elaine, we were in this room 5 years ago, and it's been a minute, but we're so glad to be back here. And Claudia, the You'll Never Walk Alone, of course, Liverpool Football Club. Let's go. Look, two things about this community that I think about. You'll Never Walk Alone is a great metaphor. In Rotterdam, Ursula, you made this statement that this is hard work, this can be lonely work, and this community of us supporting each other, sharing with each other is a thing. I was talking to Catherine last night from Brisbane. Catherine Turner was talking about sometimes the lack of courage out there in systems to break through, and there is courage in this room. So we're so glad to be back together and glad you're here. I'm just going to do a quick past, present, and future to Brian Amadani and the Henry Ford Health team. But we actually first started together. Who in here was in Zero Suicide 1 in Oxford in 2014? Becky, you and I were there with Jan and Jerry Reed and Eduardo Vega and Fergus Comiskey and a host of others. We crashed a global leadership exchange match that was being held by Keith Houghton. Dr. Jerry Reed from the Suicide Prevention Resource Center was my partner on putting that together. The very first thing that happened was Keith Houghton, 5 minutes into the session, began essentially saying that zero suicide was as terrible an idea as zero bullying, another effort in the UK that had unintended consequences. And so we had this teasing going on right from the outset. And Jerry and I had been on this construction site the day before in London that said, all harm is preventable, target zero. And we shared this just performance improvement brought to this really important space. So it was quite a discussion, and we got to have a relationship with the folks who were there, Keith and others, which was really the introduction to Nav Kapoor and others. And that was when Jan made this statement, no one should die alone in despair. We came back together in Atlanta in 2015. Joe Smith, who we had met in Oxford, began to bring us the lessons of the early innovations of first break psychosis early intervention services. She was a spectacular facilitator. We partnered with Behavioral Health Link there in Atlanta, and we created the first international declaration for zero suicide, borrowing from a model that Joe had used with first break psychosis services, which had been borrowed from folks in the early diabetes care. And then Sue, we went to Sydney, and we partnered with Sue in Suicide Prevention Australia. There's Mike and Becky and Verna and Ursula, and we partnered with AMP. We had a spectacular facility overlooking the harbor, and we created yet another product from that. And at that event, we talked Jan into announcing, I think originally we announced for Amsterdam, and Deloitte landed up having us move that. So it was really special last night, Brian, to have Nicole and Jan's children join us to do a tribute. But that was a spectacular event 6 years ago now. How many of you were in Rotterdam? So a lot of new people here, Brian. And we partnered with Deloitte, and we created an international declaration. So at that event, we talked about that, Joe, we announced that we would come to Liverpool in the beginning of 2020. And then that didn't happen. And we pushed it back, and we canceled it, and then we were going to do it. And I was working on the email. We were planning to do a crisis summit in Amsterdam, and I'm like, this is too much going on. We can't do all of this. And I got an outreach from Brian Amadani, and we began talking about this effort and this community. And Henry Ford began to look at owning this effort and moving it forward into the future, which we were thrilled about. Richard and I were in a room 10 plus years ago when we heard the Henry Ford story for the first time. And it really did ripple out this effort between the courage, the action, and the community. So, Brian, I would like to officially transition.
All right.
With a YNWA hat, which is what? You'll never walk alone, Brian.
Thank
Couldn't
you
be
so
more
much.
thrilled.
Thank you so much. I love it. Thank you so much, David.
It's going to be an exciting journey forward, and we couldn't be more thrilled to the folks who started this off in the first place to be helping take this to areas far flung. It's been an international community, but restricted to certain areas of the world. And Brian's vision, the Henry Ford vision, is really taking this to the next level, so we couldn't be more excited.
Thank you.